Welcome back to peer-guided DBT lessons, provided by DBT Skills application, Peers Helping Peers. This week's lesson, marked 3-2 in our Emotion Regulation module, will be looking at how emotions help us. Please keep in mind that we're simply peers helping peers, working together to bring about more peaceful, constructive, and ultimately happier lives. In other words, a life worth living. How can anything which can cause so much suffering be helpful? 3 key things that emotions do for people. Number 1, emotions motivate and organize us for action. Number 2, emotions communicate to and influence others. And number 3, emotions communicate to ourselves. Additionally, emotions help us survive, thrive, and avoid danger. Emotions can help us make decisions. Number 1, emotions motivate and organize us for action. One example of how emotions motivate us is what is known as the Yerkes-Dodson law. It finds a positive relationship between moderate levels of anxiety and optimal performance, at a job or in a relationship, for example. But if there's not enough tension, a person won't care enough to perform well. And if there's too much tension, a person also won't be able to perform well because their anxiety interferes. Emotions motivate. In most people, emotions motivate our behavior. Emotions are often the entire reason we want to act in the first place. Without emotions, we may not care enough to want to do anything. Anger is a particularly good motivational emotion. The joy and exuberance also serve the same function of urging us to take actions that satisfy those emotions. Anger motivates us to take action to change a situation that we consider unacceptable. Emotions motivate and organize us for action. Emotions prepare us for action. The action urge of specific emotions is often hardwired into our biology. Emotions save time in getting us to act in important situations. Emotions can be especially important when we don't have time to think things through. Strong emotions help us overcome obstacles, both in our minds and in the environment. Emotion and motion come from the same root word and equal energy in motion. Theodore Roosevelt once quoted, "In any moment of decision, the best thing you can do is the right thing. The next best thing is the wrong thing. And the worst thing you can do is nothing." Number 2, emotions communicate to and influence others. Emotions are essential to communicating our needs and wants to other people. Emotions can give us the internal strength we need to stand up for ourselves, and when reinforced by facts and logic, provide us a solid cause to advocate for. Facial expressions can also communicate emotions to other people. In fact, facial expressions communicate faster than words. Facial expressions are hardwired aspects of emotions. Our body language and tone of voice, which can also be hardwired, also communicate our emotions to others. So these 3 things, facial expression, body language, and tone of voice, non-verbally convey to others whether we're content or frustrated or repulsed, etc. Emotions communicate our values, priorities, and what kind of person we are. People bond over shared emotional experiences. As such, emotions can draw people together. Our emotions communicate to others that we feel similarly, which can foster social bonds. Emotions provide us with an ability to connect with other people who feel similarly about a variety of things: social issues, political issues, individuals, groups, relationships, etc. Or, oppositely, our emotions can communicate that we feel completely differently than the other person does, which might inspire debate and further interaction and communication. Whether we intend it or not, our communication of emotions influences others. Emotion is persuasive. It can inspire sympathy and compassion, or disgust and derision in others, depending on how it's used. The extreme of using emotions to influence another person is manipulation. It seems appropriate to state a reminder that emotions can be good for us and used to achieve good ends, but they can also be used negatively because ultimately emotions are very powerful means of communication. Number 3. Emotions communicate to ourselves. Emotional reactions can give us important information about a situation. Emotions can be signals or alarms that something is happening that we are uncomfortable with or alarmed by. Conversely, they can be signals that there is something we want to investigate further, curiosity, or something that we're looking forward to, excitement. The list of information that emotions can provide us is as long as the number of emotions that exist. Gut feelings can be like intuition, a response to something important about the situation. This can be helpful if our emotions get us to check the facts. Emotions can also communicate to us about ourselves and our self-perception. Feelings like guilt and shame and envy can give us a starting point to work out what's going on with us psychologically and emotionally. Emotions communicate to us when we're happy, when we're content, when we're excited, etc. Frequency of these emotions also provides us with information about ourselves. For example, regular feelings of righteous anger can give some people confidence in their faith, whereas rare feelings of righteous anger may communicate to someone that whatever inspired that feeling is a particularly important thing. The intensity of our emotions in response to various stimuli can inform us how important that thing is to us and our lives. Emotions help us survive, thrive, and avoid danger. Emotions are thoughts that we haven't had yet. People entirely overlook the wisdom of the body and the subconscious, believing that the only way to make a decision is deliberation, and this is not only wrong, but dangerous. We need emotions for speed of choice in life-threatening situations, where the time to make a decision is critical to survival. An example here. A man's wife asks him how she looks in her new dress. Alarm bells instantaneously go off in his head as he experiences the emotion fear, and before he can even consider an alternative, he says without noticeable hesitation, "You look marvelous in that dress, my dear," thereby saving himself to live another day. Emotions can help us make decisions. Effective decision-making is not possible without the motivation and meaning provided by emotional input. A few years ago, neuroscientist Antonio Damasio made a groundbreaking discovery. He studied people with damage in the part of the brain where emotions are generated. He found that they seemed normal, except that they were not able to feel emotions. But they all had something peculiar in common. They couldn't make decisions. They could describe what they should be doing in logical terms, yet they found it very difficult to make even simple decisions, such as what to eat. Many decisions have pros and cons on both sides. Shall I have the chicken or the turkey? With no rational way to decide, these test subjects were unable to arrive at a decision. Consider Antonio Damasio's patient, Elliot. Previously a successful businessman, Elliot underwent neurosurgery for a tumor and lost a part of his brain, the orbitofrontal cortex, that connects the frontal lobes with the emotions. He became a real-life Mr. Spock, devoid of emotion. But rather than this making him perfectly rational, he became paralyzed by every decision in life. Your emotional system can give you an advantage in decision-making if you make proper use of it. Many people think of their emotions as something they have to manage or control rather than something upon which they could capitalize. Emotions can tell you something about the world that you may not have accurately perceived in another way. They are something to interpret and use rather than an annoyance that you should ignore or control. Just like the thumb on your hand, emotions help you, even though at times they may seem to get in the way. Three key things that emotions do for people. Number 1, emotions motivate and organize us for action. Number 2, emotions communicate to and influence others. Number 3, emotions communicate to ourselves. Additionally, emotions help us survive, thrive, and avoid danger. Emotions can help us make decisions. Next week, in our peer-guided DBT lessons emotion regulation module, we'll be examining the value of unpleasant emotions.